Sorry, everybody. We always have some glitch on 25th of November, so this is no exception. Hi, Amina.
Hello,
Sorry.
hello.
We always have a technical glitch. I don't know why. Whenever we're doing something on violence against women or we're trying to talk about human rights, we get hacked off and shut down. And
Absolutely.
this is not the first time. So,
Nope.
welcome back. So,
Thank you.
just to talk about you, where I got disconnected at that point in time, is that you are a person who has been a mentor. You have been in service, you have been a moderator, and
Mm.
you've also been an empath, which is the reason why you serve hands-on. You get your hands dirty, you go out
Absolutely.
there, you've seen the actual survivors, you talk about preventive measures. So I'd like to request you that if you could please tell us a little bit more about the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights. When it started, what was the reason it started, and your
Mhm.
journey so far.
Well, thank you so very much for asking that question. Not many people ask about the Federation. They always ask about me. So thank you for that. The Federation of International Gender and Human Rights is a social impact organization. This organization started because the need was there, period.
Yeah.
There are women out here that needed to have someone to advocate for them. I will never speak for a woman, but I will help her raise her voice so that she can speak better for herself. And one of the things that I notice is that through tribe, culture, tradition, even generational ancestry, so many women have been held back because of this patriarchal mindset that women need to be seen and not heard, as though they don't have a voice and their voice is not necessary. Then there was a true onslaught of damaging misinformation that has come through social media, the news media, and other talented sources that have a better responsibility on reporting what is true and what is right. The news media as a whole has pushed certain religions and certain groups of people and even certain dialects of those groups of people, and so far behind that the women will never ever reach the surface. I mean, it's like they're doggy paddling immensely and they're still not getting to the top. And one of the things that we do in the Federation is we allow them to understand that the platform, the table, the room, and everything else you can mention as far as empowerment is available to them. And we bring that to them very interestingly quick. So when we meet them, we let them know, one, whatever you say is what we're going to do. However you want to move is what we're going to support. And whatever you need to start the healing is what we're going to provide. We say our prayers, we do our meditations, and we offer the women the best hope, help, and resources that we can. And this is individual. I gave such a broad schematic of it, but it is very individual, very intentional, and very deliberate in what we offer.
Yeah. So when did you start the Federation, Amina?
Officially on paper as a registered entity in 2015, but we have been starting this, we have been doing this actually in my medical practice. Before I retired in 2020 to help with COVID, I was designing a program to help women that were abused, that were sexually aggressed, that were married and felt like they couldn't file charges when their husband was raped them, women that were victims of FGM through tribe and tradition, those that want to use sacrificial hurt and pain to women as a religious front. Is when I decided that enough was enough. Enough was enough. Gender-based violence is 150% preventable. And I think that this is where our work is truly met.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Amina. I want to talk to you about the present time and age that we live in. First, the world was hit with COVID. And people were confined to places, and that created violence in the house because, you were in a small area with a person maybe you were not comfortable with, and you were happy he goes to work or she goes to work or whatever. And followed by that, there was the war with Russia and Ukraine. Today, the new normal is the bully's normal, the normal of bashing, wife bashing or woman bashing, or so to say, the new normal is aggression and rage. What do you have to say about this in the current times that we are? And this goes for sorry, this goes for whether you're educated, uneducated, irrelevant of your location, irrelevant of, you know, your ethnicity or your religion. It is just the present rage that is there in the world, you know, economic rage, of emotional rage, whatever. So what would you like to say about that?
Well, the rage was already there. Unfortunately, like racism and the offenses of racism, now it's just televised. But the racism has always been there. The patrilineal or the very machismo of this aggression has already been there.
Yeah.
So many people have now have it. I think their eyes are open now, because one of the things that we fought for years was for laws that would be better put in place to protect women. And so many of the men that are put in place to enforce these laws are the very ones that are pushing these laws by the wayside. Just stand your ground had a premise. And I don't know if you know about stand your ground. This is when homicide is justifiable, when you fear for your life, or you fear for your property, or if you feel that your life of your family is in jeopardy, you have the right to take a life. This is an Islamic tenet that is misused and abused. These are things that are taken in society and just twisted, and they were designed to protect the vulnerable, which is women, the elderly, and those that are under physical restriction. And so many times here in the United States that the COVID virus has trapped women in the house with those that are known to be violent. They were violent before COVID. Now you're making me live in the house 24/7 with this angered person. So many reports are coming in that are brand new. Women that are in the lower denomination, or what we would call the hood, and those that are in the golden.
Marginalized.
Correct. No. Not even the marginalized women. We're talking about the demographics that they live in, the things that are being allowed in their communities, the things that are going on in the community. Has nothing to do with economics. It has to do with not reporting. And what I'm speaking on is there are white women now, very well-to-do, upper middle class, upper class women that are reporting offenses that their husband are making, that their intimate partner is making toward them, what they've experienced over the years. This has grown the numbers of gender-based violence, because now those that are affected the most, that have the money, are now speaking out. The Me Too movement started with a woman being ostracized in life because of who she was, and it grew into this, you're not going to touch me in that way inappropriately anymore, and I don't care who you are, and I don't care how popular you are, I'm blowing the whistle. And the idea behind it was to stand for what was happening. But you notice that it didn't make the news until it was women that were of a higher echelon, a higher financial ability, that were taking this to the streets and saying this is not going to happen anymore. So the voices are being elevated. And because of that, we are getting more and more women able to report, feeling comfortable to report. And our resources are truly, truly in a greater need right now. And I think that this is where I see the greatest advantage to being of help and support.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And coming from you, who is running a federation, Amina, is one aspect of looking at it. The other aspect is, if you look at what we were trying to do on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, you know, educated women are also victims. You know, people working for the United Nations and NGOs, they're also victims. You know, women who are advocates and doctors, they're also victims. So it's not an illiterate class of women. It's just women. And what frightens me, in last year's figures, when we were talking and we had this, you know, special IG that we did, the number was that 1 out of 3 women, now we're 2 women talking. Imagine if you get a third one in, 1 of the 3 of us has experienced violence. How much more scarier does it get? It's more scarier than COVID.
Absolutely.
It's more scary. So why do people not talk about the subject? Why are the men terrified to speak, the women terrified to come out in the open and speak? And the minute you talk to the men, they want to blame the women, saying that, you know, this victim blaming aspect that happens, that she made me do this and she caused this and I did this. And the women don't want to talk because they have to go back to homes and in-laws will not accept them. society will laugh at them and say you're educated. And so this whole victim blaming game that goes on, what do you have to say on that?
Well, the victim blaming is a sad, sad sarcasm to the event. One, if you have the audacity to blame a victim, somebody that has been known, you see the bruises, you see the marks, you see the busted lip, you see the bruises about the body, and you're going to say that this person caused this, you're about as sick as the person that actually did the hitting, that did the beating. And one of the things that I noticed with that is that it is more matrilineal that does this, that tells the woman to go back to the house. You have the mothers and the aunts and the cousins, the women cousins, telling her to go back to him, give him another chance, forgive him, try to use religion as the stronghold for accepting him back, that if God forgives, who are you not to forgive? And
yes,
all of this shaming. There's a difference between victim blaming and victim shaming. The victim blaming hurts, but the victim shaming is extended. And this goes to people at work. If you go to work with the bruises, instead of reporting it to the authorities, they'll say, oh my God, what happened? And then they'll go and whisper it to someone else. That shames that person. Yes. When you have someone that is in school with you, a young child that comes in with bruises, and you're the adult in the class and you don't report that, you're almost condoning the behavior to continue because there is no repercussion. So one of the things that we speak to in the Federation is understanding the advocacy. Again, I don't speak for a woman, but I will speak up because of a woman. And that is huge. That is, if I see a bruise on your face, I'm calling the authorities immediately. I don't care if you say no. I don't care if, oh, Amina, please don't call. I'm calling. Why? Because even if they place a report, even if they don't come out and do the arrest or suffice a warrant for arrest, they still have a record of abuse that's in their files. So if there is another abuse later on, now there's 2. Later on, there's 3. They'll see the pattern develop. And once they see a clear and cut pattern, when you call back again, especially if it goes even worse, because we can't stop a woman from doing what she chooses to do. We can only keep her safe where she needs to be. Yeah. If she goes back and it gets even worse, now she's unconscious. Now she's non-responsive and not breathing. And we see the pattern. So now who is to blame? Because if the police have all these reports and they never went out for a follow-up or a checkup, now the accountability now goes to the law enforcement and the legal side and the laws of policy and politics. Now we get to see a bigger bite to this apple. So what we're doing here in the States is we're giving accountability where accountability is best, which is making sure that the woman has a voice, whether through advocacy or through her own voice, and making sure that the law is now catching up. Now, after 2 complaints, he has to go to jail. The first one, they kind of give it to her. Oh, well, she didn't want to file a report. Okay. Well, if this happens a second time, he's going to jail. Whoever did it the second time. So if it's the same person twice, if it's somebody else in that same household, somebody is going to jail. She's going to a safe haven, or she's may be able to be placed in her home where you remove the aggressor, the woman can stay, because that's a big piece also. How come when women get abused?
Kitty Caldra, Christina, Mr. Jaswal, all are appreciating what you're saying and agreeing with you. So I'm just sharing that with you because I can see the comments. I don't know if you can.
No, I can't. But thank you so very much. So many times women are abused and they're made to leave their home. Why? Yeah. They didn't do anything wrong. Remove him from the house. Remove the aggressor, the abuser from the house. So here in the States, if you get charged twice, he goes to jail at least overnight, and then he gets a quick arraignment. And if if it's suitable based on the circumstances and the pathology, he will get some jail time. And that's a great deterrent. We're noticing that is a huge deterrent. When you get taken away from your job because you're in jail, your family, that is a huge, nobody wants to know that they have a criminal in the family, especially under those circumstances. So it's a huge deterrent. And this is the plight that we're looking for around the world, to get other law enforcement agencies, other policymakers on board to get laws in place for the same matter.
But Amina, this is in America. We're talking in other countries, not even third world, to the second world countries. It is the women who do not support the women. It's the sister-in-law, the mother-in-law. I mean, I have gone through that myself, so I know it's a shameful thing for you to go and talk to your friends. It's
Correct.
not a shameful thing for the husband to beat the wife, but it's a
Right.
shameful thing for a woman to talk about violence. And then
Right.
women turning around and saying, "You're so powerful, you're so influential. How could this happen to you?" It's like
Right.
as if you stood and said, "Beat me." You know, it's the most heartbreaking factor
It is.
that we talk
Right.
about sisterhood. And
Right.
then when a woman says that I'm going through something difficult, and she takes the courage, because it takes a lot of courage to go and
It
show your
does.
vulnerability, you turn around and say, how can a woman as strong as you, or how can this, happen? What will your in-laws say? Mother-in-laws say, no, this is not going to happen. So I mean, what is going to be the psyche of the women who are damaged and broken, who are picking up their parts in life, trying to put on the mask that everything is fine because they have a job to go to, they have
Mhm.
bills to pay for it,
Right.
but the brokenness in the heart, the mind, and the soul, isn't that reflecting a very broken society?
It does. It stems from lack of education. I'm just going to put it bluntly. It's not because we don't know that that is wrong. It is because society has made it so available. It has condoned it on so many levels. So many people hide behind religion and spirituality. This is my tradition. This is my tribe. It's wrong. I don't care what race, creed, clan, tribe, community you come from. Hitting a woman, abusing a woman, sexual and gender-based violence is wrong. Period. From the adage that female genital mutilation is some kind of Islamic acceptance, that is so wrong, and I say it officially on record, to believing that because my grandfather did it and my father did it, I'm allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, but you knew it was wrong when they did it. So why would
Yeah.
you think and take on to yourself that this is okay for you to do? And then for the women, that piece, oh my goodness, I can't even begin to even, oh, I don't even have the words to
Me
say
too, Amina. It's
that women
shocking.
would allow this.
They're
If I
victims
know,
of it. They are victims of it when they were young.
right,
And now they are seeing their daughter-in-laws being victims of it now, second generation of violence, and they blame the daughter-in-law.
they have three generations. We have grandmother, mother, and child in the house. Grandmother did it to mother, mother did it to child, and now the rest of the family is looking like, well, is this really right? But you have three generations in the same household that felt as though it was right. What happened in those three generations? What happened when the grandmother did it and it was wrong? Why didn't the husband or the aunt or the mother or something say it to them? This is wrong. Then when the daughter grew up and had children, why didn't she say it was wrong? Why didn't the husband? Why didn't the mother? Why didn't the aunt? All of these people had opportunities. These are three generations with at least a handful of people in each scenario that
Yeah.
had the ability to say this is wrong. But what it comes down to, as I mentioned, is education. Sometimes you don't know that you don't know. Sometimes, just like, the adage of the fish in the frying pan. My grandmother used to tell me this story about it, and it wasn't until I was older that I understood it. She said there was a woman that was in the kitchen watching her mother cook fish. And when the mother was preparing the fish, she cut the tail and the head off. And she put the fish in the pan and she fried it up. And then the daughter asked, well, mom, why do you fry the fish like that? She said, well, because my mother did it this way. So she went to the grandmother, and the grandmother, she said, when my mommy cooks fish, she cuts the head and the tail off. And she said that that's the way to cook fish. She said, oh, no, your mother's wrong. She said, that's not the way to cook fish. That's because the fish couldn't fit in the pan any other way. So they cut the head and the tail. And that story stuck with me for years because, again, the daughter never asked any questions. Why did my mother cook fish this way? She thought this was the way that you cook fish. This is the only way. This is the only way I know. This is the way. So I did it that way. The daughter, the baby, the child, was smart enough to ask, well, mom, why do you cut the head and the tail off? Why not the fin? Why not the scales? Why not the innards? Why do you cut the head? And the mother's answer was, that's because that's the way my mother did it. So now when you go back to the source and the mother says, oh, that's not the only way you cook fish. That's just the way I had to cook fish because the fish didn't fit in the pan. Now you get the pathology. Now you get the understanding as to why she does that. We don't do that in society. We don't go back and ask those questions. How many people in this viewing audience has asked their mother or asked their grandmother why certain traditions happen in the family? Have they physically sat them down and said, for example, I'm in the birth world, so Have you asked your mother, how was my birth? Have you asked your grandmother, how was my mother's birth? Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you in a space where you felt safe? Did you do this because of tradition, or did you really love him when you got married? Did you have a great birth experience when I was born, or was it tragedy and trauma behind it? Were you getting ready to divorce? These are questions that most people don't ask, so we don't get the pathology of why things happen. Yeah. Now we're mothers ourselves. Now we were the child asking that question about the fish in the pan. Now we're mothers. Now we have children. Now we're graduating. Now I even have grandchildren now. I'm almost 60. So to know that is to know there is a great generational piece where my oldest grandchild is 12 years old now. And it's like in 6 more years, I may be a great grandmother. Like if they have babies early, what am I going to tell him? What am I going to put out there as the truth if I don't teach it by example? And this is the bigger piece in that education, teaching it by lineage and teaching it by example.
I couldn't agree more with you.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you one question, which I've been fearing for the last whole week, that I have to ask you this question. And how am I going to ask you this question? Are the numbers, according to United Nations, decreased of violence from last year, or is it worse?
Yeah, because of these new numbers of women coming out, it is actually worse. So it is actually worse. Since COVID, it has risen 347%. And the way I remember that number is because that's the first 3 digits of my cell phone number. But the understanding is 347%. So we're not talking about 347 more people. We're talking about 347%. So that means if there was 1 person that was affected, now there's 3.5 people that are affected since COVID. Now, COVID is just 1.5 years gone. I mean, since we've gotten out of all of the parameters. 2021, beginning of 2022 is when we start seeing the decline in the numbers of COVID cases. But the quarantine numbers were so high in 2022 that we were scared of the numbers. And I can say that. I've talked to people in WHO, the UN factions, UN Women, CDC in Atlanta, and they were scared. They were like, I want to make sure that this is the right count. They were counting over and over and over and over and over again because they didn't want to believe the numbers. They didn't want to believe how many women not only are coming out now, but are admitting that things were bad before COVID because the exasperation of the crimes, that the children are now being affected. Some children were running to school every morning just to escape the abuse all day. Now they have no school and they have to stay home.
And they have to be witnesses. And what you see, you will emulate in your life. Correct. So, Amina, what is the future for the next generation of women if 1 out of 3 women are going through this as victims? I mean, we have people who come and talk about survivors. Survivors are great role models, but let's talk about the victims here. They say that, okay, men are also going through violence. We agree. There is a percentage of men who are. But can we see the same numbers matching as women? Of course not. So if we are doing something like a mandatory vaccine for COVID, is there any mandatory steps for this so that it doesn't go to now 2 women out of 3 women standing together, 2 women are victims, and then finally the whole of womanhood. The world has every woman in the world who is a victim of violence.
Well, we haven't gotten the statistics yet. We haven't gotten the statistics yet for 2022 yet, but I'm pretty sure we're probably going to go to 1 and 2 by the time the year is up. We won't have these full statistics till about March of next year. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 1 of 2 because so many women have come out. You have no idea how many women. We went from, just in the Federation alone, serving women. We went from, let's say, I'm just going to throw out a random number in 2019 because I don't have the numbers in front of me. We had maybe, 10, 12 women a month that would come to seek services, immigrants, asylum seekers, refugees, IDPs that were coming to us. Maybe, let's say 10 a month. So that's what, 120 a year, okay? And that was 2019. 2020 at the top of COVID, it dropped because no one was out, it dropped. So we were like, oh my God, did COVID do something? Like, oh wow. When we got to the end of 2020, before the close of Q4, which is October, November, December of 2020, the numbers were at 210%. So what that means is instead of 10 a month, it is now 24 a month. Then we got to the top of 2022, which was when we were thinking, oh, COVID is almost over. The numbers have gone down as far as the cases. We're going to go into a great field of change. People are going to get out now. And the numbers went up again to 300%. So now instead of 24, we have 30 in the office. Again, this is going out of COVID. We're leaving. The numbers are still going up. So how do we go from serving 10, 12 a month to serving 30 in the same month with the same resources? The affect was so great that we actually had to start using.
Sorry, Professor Chip says Professor Chip says he actually absolutely agrees with you and that you're correct. So there's just too many people writing comments. I didn't want to disturb you, but I hope when we save this, it stays. And
yes, it will.
Sending you hearts and loves for honestly speaking all these things which are not spoken about, because as before we got hacked off in the first session, I said this is a subject that both men and women are uncomfortable with. It's not only men, it's men and women.
Correct.
You know, they're happy with the cat videos, but they don't want to talk about something which is worse than COVID, which is domestic violence.
Correct. That is always going to be an underlying pandemic. And until we get ahead of it, we will always see it as a crisis that we celebrate once a month in October for Domestic Violence Month. That is so sad and so shameful that it hurts me to know that so many women go through this all year round, yet you're only going to raise their voice in October. This has been a pandemic since the dawn of time. I think since the oldest profession, which they say is prostitution, since that has been, because they, of course, it's been known, oh, you can't rape the willing, oh, you can't rape a prostitute, oh, that's where all of this came from. These are the domesticated violence incidences that don't go, that go unreported. These are the women that had the very first cases of abuse that went unreported. So can you imagine if the oldest profession is prostitution hundreds and thousands of years ago, how gender-based violence has been in effect since then, and no one has done anything to change the numbers. And as I just reported, the numbers are going up. So what does that mean? We're supposed to be an industrialized, modernized society. Why do we still have Neanderthal problems? Why is this still a caveman mentality where you grab her by the hair and throw her over the shoulder and whatever you say happens to her and she has no voice? Why are we still in that mindset? We're educated. We're informed. We can own houses and property and vote and drive and all of the things that we can do. Why is this still happening? Because there is still an undertone of patriarchal abuse in society. And that's the shift that we have to make.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you, because this is educated society participating with the illiterate people who are. So there's not much of a difference of sending your son to university or, you know, postgraduate degrees and him having a senior management post. The minute the ego is threatened, he can whack you, and that's okay, you know. And you're too embarrassed to talk about it, so you put makeup on and you go and you keep on giving him a second chance, a third chance, going to counsel, therapy, and so on and so forth. So, Amina, how can we bring men and women together to the table? What message would you give them that this educated society that we are in, this so-called emancipated society, the society that, you know, has luxury and everyone's brand conscious and metrosexual, what would you say to the male and the female gender to make a change today? If we were to just look at 2022, to make a change so next year's numbers don't frighten us, what would you say?
I think we have to, instead of wanting them to come together, I think we have to create the table. Things like this that you're doing is perfect. Getting people on to talk, real talk, not hide behind statistics and data and titles and labels. It doesn't make a difference what I do. What I'm saying is the truth. And that is where we need to get to. Get to people that know what the truth is, how the truth is going to be relevant in their life, and what it is that's going to cause a great change and difference in the life of women. This is where I think the greater parameters are going to come. And this is where I think we're going to have the greater vessel of what it is that we are able to do. That's one. Number two is when we create that table, we're going to create it under the auspices that we're going to be honest, accountable, and reverent to what it is that we hear. Honest, because we need to tell the truth. Even if that means you finally telling your story. I'm a woman of abuse. Raising your hand and admitting it out loud, because sometimes that helps you to breathe again.
Yes.
The more honorable thing in that honesty is being respected of that space. So what we say here stays here. We're going to play Las Vegas in here. And this is where we get to be able to share. So we're not afraid to share, because sometimes it's not that I don't want to tell my story. I just don't know what Ann's going to do with that information. Is she going to spread it on social media? I mean, she has 500,000 followers. Like, that's 500,000 people that's going to know my business. Is she going to share that? Oh my God, I can't say that in front of her. She's too popular. No. And then the last thing is elongate the table. Stop putting people that are popular at the table and put people that it affects at the table. Stop making it a big thing where you have superstars that want to tell about because their boyfriend yelled at them and they just felt threatened. How about the woman that has no eye now, that has no vision in her eye anymore? How about the woman that is crippled because she got kicked in the back? How about the woman that is not here anymore and her children are speaking up for her because she was killed?
Dead. Yes.
Exactly. Put those people at those tables, because those are the people that will tell you in real time what domestic violence does, how it affects you, and what it is that we need to do to change. Get people off the street, get arrest warrants, get laws in place, get policy in place, and stop playing the game of passing the buck. Women need help.
Yes, I agree. I mean, and that's beautiful. The audience is agreeing with you as well. You know, there is a saying that says that don't bleed on someone who didn't cut to you. But a survivor of domestic violence who's still bleeding, who's never told her story, who's just moved on, would she ever be able to build her life? What are the constructive steps you would tell survivors of violence that they can enact and, you know, implement in their lives?
Well, first of all, you know, when you said that, it just sent a chill up my spine. That saying has always hurt me. Don't bleed on someone that didn't cut you. You know, contrary to popular belief, I'm just going to put this in a face that you understand. If you see someone on the ground that you know, a friend, a relative, and they're laying on the ground bleeding, the first thing you're going to do is go over to them and pick them up. You're going to pick them up and you're going to try to be, oh, what's happening? Where are you bleeding? What happened? You're going to yell for someone to call 911, or you're going to do it yourself, and you're going to try to get them help. While they're laying in your lap, while they're laying in your arms, what are they doing? They're bleeding on you because they can't help but stop the bleeding. Now you're going to tell that person that's laying in your arms, could you please stop bleeding on me? I didn't cut you. How rude is that? That's the same mindset that you take when you say, when people tell me don't bleed on people that didn't cut you. Yes, you were the one called to show up so that they can bleed and feel safe bleeding and knowing that they're going to get to a realm of safety and security. And more to your point, they'll know that not only are they going to be safe, but they're going to get well because you stepped in. So this is where I tell people not only to deal with those that are dealing in domestic violence and intimate partner violence, but be that shoulder they can bleed on. Not forever. Don't be a doorpost to let them just pour out their blood. However, allow them to heal, put pressure on the wound so that the wound stops. Pressure meaning get them the services that they need in society so that their wound can heal. And then when you pressurize that wound, make sure you get to other resources that can help them fully. Help them heal from the inside out. Help them to stop the infection. Infection in this sense is going back to the man again. Help her to get away from him. Help her to heal the wound from the outside by keeping it clean. Keeping it clean means keep her active. Get her education. Get her knowledge. Get her to a safe space and a safe place. And allow her to be able to breathe again. This is how we keep the person from bleeding continuously. And so many of us would rather let somebody else do it, or they'll stand in front of them and take a selfie and be, you know, oh, I'm standing here with someone bleeding on the ground, and they'd rather post it to Instagram
Which is
rather
happening
than get that.
nowadays, Amina, when there are victims of road accidents, rather than going to the rescue of the victim, people are making videos of it and posting on Instagram and Facebook.
Never understood that. I never
Yeah.
understood that.
Mhm.
Never understood that.
You know, they say the indifferent friend is worse than a lethal
The
enemy.
enemy. That's right. And I've seen videos on someone has sent me through groups, WhatsApp groups. I've seen videos where children are being abused. And I'm wondering who's recording this?
Yeah.
Who is recording this video and allowing these children to be abused on camera just to get a story? Because they are just as bad as allowing the children to get abused. Same thing when you publicize women being abused, but yet you don't do anything to step in. How many times have you seen pictures of people on Instagram that are telling their story and they're showing the bruises, and you see people, oh, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
I'm the one that goes in there and say, where are you? What city are you in? Because I'm calling the police.
Exactly.
Do you know how many times my comment has been removed? How many times that people have found the comment and deleted it? Because I'm calling the police and don't care who knows. I will put my picture on any of my posts and let you know, what area are you in? If I see it in your post and I see it's in New York, I'm calling the police and I'm sending them the video. Why? Because they can trace now the IPs and the IP addresses. They can find out where the video is coming from. They can find out who's posting, and they can get you the help. And I guarantee you there's got to be somebody out here that can agree that doing that just for one person, you can save their life. Yeah. And I don't see why we don't do that. We just, oh, I'll pray for you. Yeah.
You know, Amina, you were always the person who walked the talk. You know, the 16 days that you do for activism, absolutely. I take it very seriously because you are like a mentor to me. I have learned and been inspired by your life and in action, the work that you do. But I asked the question to the people on social media. Every voice matters. Why can't we have, when we say stop violence against women, a person saying, I support you from India, I support you from Indonesia, I support you from Malaysia? Why don't we have this? We're all educated people. We're reading the post and then we're passing it. If we can do a right click and pass a post, why can't we give a tick mark and support?
Well, because one, it may strike feelings of familiarity. I don't want to help her because no one helped me. And that's a big thing also. When we do our group sessions, I always ask, for every abused woman, they know an abused woman. Yes. And this is a real reality, and most people don't see it that way. You know someone that's been abused because that's probably the person that you went and told that you were abused, because they understood. So if every abused woman knows an abused woman, there should be a groundswell of support that starts right there from me clicking your post. I was a victim of violence. You are a victim of violence. I'm supporting it. Not only am I supporting you, but I'm going to repost that and then put my comments. I stand with Ann. And I say her name. You see it all the time on my, say her name.
Because she's not a victim. She's a person.
She is a person that deserves your support. You couldn't support her through the battles of what she went through. Support her in her healing. And if you don't do that, you're just as bad as the abuser, because she deserves that support. She didn't get it. And this is the way that you do. You know, one of the things I like on Instagram, there's a little model that says, supporting your friends doesn't necessarily equate to money, but it is value to the worth. That is so powerful. You don't even have to, you don't have to go to the GoFundMe. You don't have to send them any money. Just sending this viral. You'll be surprised who watches other people's videos. How many times have you seen somebody send a video somewhere and the police authority picked up on it? Yes. Or some social media person like yourself.
Newspaper channel. Yes, exactly.
Found it and posted it. And now it went viral because they saw it. Because people are watching. So support her. Support her. Say her name anytime you, and she doesn't have to be somebody famous that got abused. It could be the woman next door. Put her picture out there, a nice picture of her before the abuse, and say, this woman was just abused last night. Yeah. Support her, send her love. And what that means is everyone should, like you say, right click to send it, put a tick mark and show some love and allow the woman to understand she is loved.
Yes. And you know, Amina, I have to give credit to some men who care way more than women who are from our sisterhood, that have supported when we, especially your posts and the reposts that all the people have done for the 16 days of activism. They have actually written from the various countries saying we support you and we stand with you, because we did a similar campaign for what happened to the women in Iran. And we had, you know, more than 62 people from across the globe in 22 languages saying that women, life, freedom. If we can do that, look at COVID and the world crisis of domestic violence and abuse. Domestic violence and abuse is higher and above COVID. So why aren't we doing that now? I insist and request everybody that we are blessed to have Amina Ali with us. I will put all the coordinates of her foundation. They actually go out, help people across the globe. She's a speaker on various forums. She's a moderator to make peace between the men and women gender. She's a person who drives her campaigns so passionately that sitting on the other end of the planet, it can touch your heart. So please check out these links. Please be aware that you are a brother, a father, a son to someone. And if we don't do something, it will be like what they say, a blind gender, because every woman will end up being violated in some way.
That's right. That's right. And I think that there is the ongoing thing that allows us to understand what it is that we are talking about. And when we say that, we say in the verse of what we are bringing forward. Now, one of the things that I like to always talk about and I like to bring to the surface is always understanding how powerful we are where we are. And what does that mean? That means you can bloom where you're planted. You don't need to have titles and labels and education and backgrounds and letters after your name to be a positive support for people in your community. Your community has been waiting for you, and they have been waiting for who you are as a person to stand up for what it is that women need. Now, how does that work? And what does that mean? Well, Anne, if she is a victim of domestic violence, I am her support. So if Anne needs a place to stay, if she needs somewhere to go, if she needs some food, if she needs a shower, it doesn't make a difference. I am going to be that person that's going to give that to her regardless. I don't ask for any money. I'm not asking for any recompense. I'm not giving into the temptation of, oh, well, leave Anne alone because you don't know the background. He did that for a reason. And I don't believe in all of that. If Anne needs some place to go, Anne will have some place to go because that is who I am to her. Now, if there comes a time when there is a refuge that is necessary for other women, now Anne can be that resource. So now when Anne gets stabilized and I call her and say, Anne, I have someone in my house already. Can you host or have another woman in your household? She will be like, absolutely. So now there's two women housing two women. And now there is a great speculation that when that third woman gets well, she will house. That is how we are bringing the resolution forward. That is how we're opening the doors to betterment and the better time that we have, because we have to understand that where we are as a people has to be where other people can find us in that resolution. Thank you.
Yes. Amina, this is 2022. In your 16 days of activism, can I request you that if we can create a badge of people who want to stand together with the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights, as somebody who wants to eliminate or create awareness to eliminate gender violence. And I have 500,000 followers.
Yes.
I want to post it and ask people with your logo to post as a story, and let's see how many people join us together. Let's see some action. You know, we've had a lot of talk, and we have every year like Women's Day, you know, people posting Happy Women's Day, so stop violence against women. All of this will go on for 24 hours. Your activism will go on for 16 days, and you'll have measurable actions taken for things that you do, because that's your passion and that's your organization. But the common man will forget about this. So can we do a number count of how many people in 2022 want to align to stop violence, and hopefully pray that 2023 the numbers are lesser?
Well, we're going to make that approach. That campaign will work immensely as it pertains to what it is that we're going to be doing. That would help a broad spectrum of things. What I'd like to do ideally is to begin with that mode and allow what it is that is happening with that to be the catalyst. We're going to use these 16 days. We're going to use that campaign. We're going to use this and keep it going. Find something every month that we can do to keep it going. We're going to have a refuge of people that are going to be coming forward, and we're going to use that.
You got muted.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah. We're going to use that as the going forward to having what it is that we need. And that is something that I think is going to placate an ongoing conversation. We're going to keep that table standing up. We're going to keep the people coming to the table. We're going to elongate it as we need to. And we're going to make sure that each of the stories are being told, because that's what's necessary. And I think campaigns like that will allow more women to be able to come out and tell their story. And more women that come out will show the groundswell that we need to get change that is necessary.
Yeah, and you have the Peace Awards that happens every year, you know. That's very significant. I'm requesting in the Peace Awards, can we have a category for the maximum number of people from which country is supporting stopping violence against women? Because we will have everybody enroll on your page. So we have a count country-wise of who is actually going to walk the talk. It'll take 5 minutes. When you forward a friend's story, by the time you put your comment and the emoji and everything, it takes you 5 minutes. It'll take 5 minutes to do the form. But at least we will know how many people are with us. So next year, you know, the Federation can reward that country and say that this is the country serious about wanting to make change.
Absolutely. We have a category for that. It's called Ally and Support. And that is how many people are supporting the cause for gender and sexual and gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and those sexual and gender-based depravities of gender and human rights. And we're looking at what we are adding to the mix. Ally and Support is just that. Your name has come up so many times on so many different categories that I am so sure that you will get those marks of greatness in that tally. But I know that when we talk about Ally and Support, we're talking about what people are willing to do based on how it affects them. Yeah. Most people that are allies and support have people in their family that have been through it. So they become allies by default. My sister was abused, so yes, I'm against sexual and gender-based violence. My daughter was raped, so yes, I'm against sexual and gender-based violence. So we have that by default. Now, country by country, if we are able to tell the story and we're able to admit it without that patriarchal view, or I call it the patriarchal snare, when you start to tell your story and you see the looks of the family members, you know, looking over at you like, I know you're not about to say something about this family that's going to embarrass us. Yes. That's that patriarchal edge that kind of allows the women not to tell their story. Now, if we can have a country that defies that mindset and says, no, absolutely, turn your head, don't let her see you do that, and they support her, now that's a category that I will add tomorrow for this year.
That's perfect, Amina, because I'm always frightened, in a state of fright when 25th November comes. Yeah. Because, you know, we are talking about COVID, going again and repeating that word. This is a world crisis.
It is.
In this world crisis, why is people not getting themselves inoculated? You did that for COVID. Now, what are you going to do about this world crisis? And I want to ask you, what are the measures that schools and universities need to take to talk about, you know, the youth who are coming from broken homes or seen violence or are aggressive and have aggression and rage? What should the universities and schools contribute for the future?
Well, I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound so elementary that most people are going to be like, I don't even believe that this is, why didn't we think of this before? You know, in so many schools educate on psychology, psychiatry, mental health, behavioral health, social work, case management, human service. All of these fields deal with mental illness, mental health. And I've always wondered, first of all, I've always wondered why they took guidance counseling out of the school system. Nowhere in the world did we see guidance counseling more abruptly snatched than the United States school system. And that is because the guidance counselor used to be a chaplain, a psychiatrist, a second pair of eyes for children. They used to be the warners. So they would see something happening, and instead of going through the school system, they would go through the court system, or they would go through the legal system, or they would go through the social work system to get the child the help, so that the school wouldn't be seen as such a barbaric place to send children. Now there are no more guidance counselors. So what we have decided to do, we have adopted two schools, an elementary school and a middle school, which is a primary education center. And what we did is we put chaplains in there, gender and human rights chaplains. First in the world to ever have an international interfaith professional chaplain in gender and human rights. We developed that. And we put each of those chaplains in the school. Now, what did that do? The elementary school, it stopped bullying by 35%. I'll say that again. It stopped bullying by 35%. You may not think that's a great number, but no, any number promising. Over 1% is huge. That means if there were 10 people that were bullying, 7 of them may still be bullying, but 3 of them are not. That's 3 less people that have to afflict that damage. Okay.
Yes.
When in the middle school section, which is grades 6 through 8, the bullying went down 49%, which means that if there were 10 people, 6 are still doing it, but 4.5 are not. So when we look at that totality, that's 70% over 2 ages, primary and middle school. When we get to the high school level, which is what we adopted this year, we don't have all the tallies, but the high school level dropped 20%. So now we're at a 90% right now, just right now, before we even get the final tallies, we're at 90% decrease in bullying just by having the chaplains in there. Now, there's no other way that you can tally those numbers unless it's a real-time effort. The reason why we're so proud of those numbers is because that means in elementary, middle, and high school, the 3 primary stages here in the United States, bullying is going down. If 10 people are doing it, 9 are no longer doing it. So that means there's only 1 person still bullying. That's the rationale. So now if we can decrease it 90% over the 3 levels, can you imagine if we instructed this in every school system?
Excellent.
Can you imagine?
The future seems brighter if that happens. Most
but
certainly.
We won't adopt that. We won't adopt the mentorship. How many colleges train mental health therapists or psychologists, psychiatrists, and they don't flip those psychiatrists back into the school system? What would be a great way to do your internship and residency as a psychiatrist if you go back into the school system? Become a therapist for the kids. We call it the child whisperer, where you can get into the child's mind and create change, create new habits, get into the school systems and allow the children to get the first line of defense in creating safe spaces for them to be able to speak on the abuse. Can you imagine if we can heal a child, they won't be a damaged adult?
Absolutely.
This would be
a damaged child. You have a damaged adult that brings that baggage with him. Or
absolutely.
Her. Yeah.
And then we have that statement, don't bleed on people that didn't catch it. Well, that's because you didn't stop them from bleeding years ago. Now all they know to do is bleed because they've never had anyone to put the pressure on the wound, stop the infection, and kill it from within. So if you have...
Amina, they also say hurt people. That's truly what it is.
That's the damaged child that grows into the adult. The child only knew anger, and they only knew hurt, and they only knew desperation. So now they train that as a familiar task as an adult. So it's almost like if you take that away from them, you're going to take a part of their personality away from them, and they wouldn't know what to do. So when they feel that being threatened, they're like the cat in the corner, and they come out scratching. So they hurt you because they don't know any other way to be. So that's why I say heal the child. You won't have damaged adults.
How can my audience get in touch with you and the Federation And what are the various ways they can associate with you?
Well, they can do it right here on Instagram. I'm available. I am Amina Ali. And that's spelled all the way out. I am Amina Ali.
And I will add the links, of course.
Right. And then on LinkedIn, of course, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's when we do our most work. I know one of my girlfriends actually said, Amina, I tracked you one day and you were on Instagram 8 of the 24 hours of a day. I said, because you'd be surprised how many private messages I get from people all around the world needing help. So yes, I'm going to be on LinkedIn. I'm not on Instagram as much, and I'm definitely not on Facebook anymore after that last fiasco that happened with the woman that committed suicide and nobody helped. I got on Facebook immediately. Oh. She was abused. I was trying to get people to help in her area. And long story short, everyone kept saying, oh, I'll call her tonight when I get off work. I'll call her in a few minutes. I'll call her later today. And the later today never happened. 20 minutes after we got off that post, she killed herself. And what hurt so much about it is that there were people in her community chiming in on Facebook and would not stop and call her. I said, get off Facebook and call her. And they said, oh yeah, I'll call her in a minute. I'll call her in a minute. I'll call her after work. She killed herself because she was watching the Facebook feed and she saw that no one really cared. So yes. Why would she stay? You know, this is her mindset. Everybody keeps saying, I'm gonna call her later. There is no later. And after I saw that, is this what Facebook's about? It's gone for me. But I saw that as a group of people, 200 some odd people on this post, and nobody reached out to her. Really? Nobody reached out? Okay.
Indifference.
Yeah. Yeah. If that's supposed to be such a community, then you're gonna have to convince me that that's a better community for me, because this woman did not have to die. If one person, the reason why I made the post is because someone sent it to me in my private message. I blurred out her face and I said, there's a woman here on Facebook that needs help. She is in the throes of suicide or suicidal ideation. I don't know where she is, but if anybody knows the picture, or at least knows, like, you know, if you blurred my face, even just my dress, you would probably know that looks like Amina. Yeah. So I'm sure someone knew. And there was people saying, oh yeah, I know who that is. Oh yeah, I know she lives down the block. She lives around the corner. I used to work with her. So you know who she is. Why are you waiting to call? That bothered. So I kept asking, where is she? Oh, she's in the Midwest. Okay, Midwest where? And I'm asking more questions and you're giving me answers. So what does that mean? That she didn't deserve the help, or you're just being blunt because you can be? That hurt me in so many ways, on so many levels, that I was so disgusted with Facebook and the people that were there, because I didn't see a unity. I didn't see a community. I saw people that just wanted to have some drama in their life for 5 minutes that didn't relate to them. Yeah. And that scared me. And I just got off of Facebook, and that's 2012. So that tells you how long ago it's been. But one of the things that I like to say is that you have to go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And Absolutely. This is where our communities are our greatest. I have so many people that I've not met in person that I would give my last dollar to, because they've been such a communal net. You being one of them, Anne.
Thank you.
That has given such a great commanding force in helping to eliminate gender, sexual and gender-based violence, and increasing the rights of gender and human rights. And I think one of the things that I really, oh my goodness, I don't even have the words for it, I would go out on a limb to help, is communities that lack before the crisis happened. So these are rural communities, underdeveloped communities, marginalized communities, desert communities. And when I say desert, that means people that don't even go there because they don't even see life there. So that means you kind of left them out there. And these are the left behind, pushed behind, and labeled as other communities. And these are the communities that are not getting the help. And I go to them first. So a lot of times the work that I'm seeing is not seen on a grand scale because I'm dealing with smaller populations and communities. So I think the understanding is help the little guy first, and you'll be surprised how much help he is to you when you're talking big numbers. And that's just been the support that I've been getting.
That's wonderful, Amina, but yeah. I think I would want to take it to the second level, and that is that there is Rex Ideas for Action, which is led by Jerry and Itu.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this for over 21 years. And I think there should be a collaboration for an Indian chapter with them, because they are very
Absolutely.
aggressive in what they do. They're very local centric to India.
Absolutely.
And the next organization is Miss Face of Humanity Worldwide. They're all the way from Nigeria, United States, Indonesia, India, everywhere. And all the candidates who come out are the ones who are trying to make a change or an impact to society. So I think alliances like this, I'm going to personally facilitate introductions and take it to that level. But
Sure,
what
sure, sure.
about my followers individually? How can they align with you in contributions, in time? You know, they're from various locations, different countries. How can
Right.
they be actively involved with the Federation? Can you please advise on that?
Sure. You can go to our website, first of all, to see what we do. The website is FIGHR, 5 letters, FIGHR.org. You go to the site, you see what we're doing. You see that there are things for women, women and children, children only, men, young boys. We have a little girls society that does little high teas. So we teach them about empowerment, and we teach them how to be proper in society, and not proper as in a socialite, proper as in a leader. And we teach them from very, very little. We have sexual and gender-based violence courses, classes, fellowships, certificate programs. We have chaplaincy programs. We have degree programs, whatever suits your fancy. Go to the site, FIGHR.org. Find out what it is that we're doing, what you like to do, and then get involved. And it's just as simple as just adding a contact information. You reach out to us, tell us what you want to do, how you want to do it, and then we will reach out in ways that you are able to do in your country. We are also looking for ambassadors to represent each country. And we have, so far, we have Pakistan, we have Nigeria, Ghana, Cape Verde, the United States. We're trying to get Yemen and places in the Middle East, Dubai, and we're trying to encompass the Asias for what it is that we're doing. And we're looking for those that are doing the work. And we're not one of those organizations that gives you a title just because you ask for one.
No, not
you
at
have
all.
to do the work.
And I want to add, I forgot one organization which is always very proactive because of the young lady who runs it. Her name is Angela Brucci. She's on LinkedIn, and the organization is called Empowerful. They work with sex trafficked girls, you know, and she works actively. She's an active participant as well as a leader for the organization. So I cannot ignore mentioning her name as well. We definitely need a chapter for Turkey. We need a chapter for India. Albania is where Empowerful is, you know. And there is people like Ambassador Dunstan, who is doing a lot of stuff from His Excellency Al Kazmi in UAE, and that's another, you know, contact that should come on board. The reason I'm taking all their names is because I'm going to share this link on LinkedIn, and they know that they need to reach out to you, and, you know, take it to the next level, because they do financial you know, contribution as well as time, effort, and representation. So, you know, it kind of summarizes all the requirements that a federation like yours might need.
Well, we don't ask, we don't solicit funds. You see the value of the worth and you donate.
Yes,
we've been successful, you know, thus far. One of the things that I ask is that if I have to ask for money, you don't see the value to the worth. Yes. And if I have to ask you for money, then clearly this is not a mission that you want to support, because I shouldn't have to. If I tell you that I'm supporting women that are dealing with sexual and gender-based violence, if it has affected your life, if you can't help the woman that I'm dealing with now, you can help the next woman by donating. This is the mindset that we're in. And 1 in 3 women, you just mentioned that, 1 in 3 women. So that means the family of those 3 women, 1 in 3, have been affected by sexual and gender-based violence. You remember, and I told you, a woman that's abused knows a woman that's abused. So now that's 2 women. So the family members of that, if they cannot help their family members or don't know what to do, they can donate. So that's why we don't solicit donations, because you give money as you see fit.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. And the last thing that I want to tell you is that, when we look at this global crisis and we think of the dark ages of the past, and then we say we're talking about feminine empowerment, I see the dark ages returning if nothing is
Yes,
done about domestic violence and abuse to women. What do you think about
correct.
that?
I don't think it ever left. I think it was just televised, and now it's more emboldened. Because there isn't any new laws that were put into place, we never effectively enforce the old ones.
Yeah.
So many things are being seen now that we didn't see before, thanks to social media, thanks for people starting campaigns like the Me Too movement and Say Her Name movement. And that comes from people remembering the story. But you ever notice that when people talk about women that have been abused or something, they'll say, oh yeah, the woman that was accosted, or like Malayla, we'll say things like, oh yeah, the Iranian girl that, or they'll say the Middle Eastern girl,
Pakistani.
because they don't remember where she's from. They'll
Yeah.
say Iran because of the hostility. They'll say Saudi Arabia because of Saddam, and then they'll say no, the Middle Eastern girl that got shot in the head. Okay,
That's
say her name. What's
Pakistan.
her name?
Yes.
But
Malala.
what's her name?
Malala.
Exactly. So we don't say her name. We'll say the Pakistani girl. We'll
Yes.
say the Middle Eastern girl. We'll say the girl that got shot in the head. We'll say those things, but we're impacting the trauma instead of remembering the person. And
Yeah.
that's the human side of it. So we have a hashtag, say her name. Remember her name so that we can always remember who she was, not what affected her. Because that was preventable as well if she was guarded as a woman should be guarded and protected in her family.
Yes.
So this is where we have to remember what we're doing and watch our words and how we do it.
And also, if you see the reference to a dead body is the body and not the
Right.
name. So, I
Correct.
mean, the minute you take away the identity, you take the relevance of one's existence because you
And
think
that's
that that's the end
intentional.
of the chapter.
That's the seed of the patriarchal voice. That is the intention, to take away. She doesn't mean anything. She's a prostitute. She can't get raped. Okay. She is a woman that is in a war-torn area. So what did you expect the soldiers to do? Of course, they were going to rape her.
Yeah.
When I heard those things, literally true stories on both of them, when I heard those things, I literally got sick to my stomach. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had goodness about me, I probably would have regurgitated right there on their feet. How dare you say that?
Yeah.
And this is the value to the work that I'm talking about. This is where we won't remember her. We'll just remember the prostitute or the rape victim or the war-torn victim. And we won't remember the name because it's not important. It's a victimless crime because she was a IDP or she was a refugee or she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. How dare you?
Amina, I want to add something from my recent observation, and I've been
Okay.
feeling this for a long time, and I think today is the right platform to speak about this. Like,
Sure.
say, for example, what's happened in Iran, the women were fighting for their rights, their fundamental rights against the oppression of the government. Why is those victims that are getting arrested? I can understand you were beaten or clubbed or whatever and then put into jail and then given a chance to voice your opinion why you've done what you've done and then be punished. Why has every single female victim that has gone into prison been raped? What is the rape component in every case when it involves a woman? If today you're taken to jail for fighting against the system, you're raped. If there is a migration or displacement in your country and you're going to another country, you're raped. If you are an orphan and you're in an orphanage and nobody to look after you, you're raped. Why is rape always added along or goes along with a woman?
You've heard this
what are they
before.
trying to prove? I mean, is it?
But you've heard this before when I say it. Rape is never about sex, it's about power. The only way I can take back your power is to take something from you that you can't get back. I can't, I don't care how much people always say, well, I get an education because they can't take that from you. They can take that piece of paper, but they can't take what's up here. And that's what I teach the women. If you are raped, they try to take your power. Note the word try, because they took something that is so near and dear and personable to you, which is your dignity.
Yes.
And they took it. without your permission. And that is tantamount to sucking your soul out of you for women. And they know that. That's why it's the common denominator in war-torn areas, in jails and prisons, in the police force. I am going to take something from you that will reduce you to absolutely nothing so that I will have the greater control over you. Rape is about power. It is about a power struggle that men do to women because that's the only thing that they can take that they know will shut you down. It won't shut you up. It'll shut you down, which means I gotta get some time to get back up because this has been done to me. And they're counting on you to take more time than you need. They're counting on you to hush because you took something that they can't get back. No matter how much you pray away the hate and you pray away the pain, you still cannot get that dignity back. And it is something that you will always remember, so you'll always remember them. And it is something that you will take to your grave as something happening to you. And I did it. I am the man that did that to you. I shape-shifted your world. And I was the one that came in and took away that in your life. They want that. Why? Because they want a voice that's higher than theirs. And when you rape someone, you literally, in that moment, believe you are taking that person's voice away. And that's what hurts.
I'm very upset. I'm very upset with what you're saying. But this is the reality.
It is the reality. And so many women come to me and tell me, show me pictures of bruises and how her vagina will not stop bleeding, not because she's on a period, but because she has a vaginal tear that she doesn't have enough money to go get taken care of. Someone raped her so much that they tore her inside and she has been bleeding for a month straight. Now she's weak and she's destitute. Infection is setting in and she was raped. So now not only did they rape her, but they're now taking her life. Because the very thing that they did to her, the very thing that's causing her to bleed, now can't get care because they raped the woman that they knew didn't have money for medical care. Intentional. This is intentional. And this is why we wake up every morning to do the work. Because these women deserve a voice. There is a misogynistic energy. It's not even a voice anymore. It's an energy. That means it goes from person to person to person without even realizing it. And it is a mainstay in society because there's too many people fanning the flame to that fire, keeping it alive. And they want women to sit down. They don't want women to be the persons that they are. They don't want them to show the leadership that we already are. They don't want them in positions of power, of politics, and change. They definitely don't want them heads of countries. How many assassination attempts have happened to women that are in parliament or heads of state or that? How many? Because they know if we had a world of women leaders, there would be no war.
No, there wouldn't be war. Because
Absolutely.
the feminine in you is a mother.
It is.
You know, basically these men are raping the ideology of what a mother is. Because every man has come from a mother. If there was no mother, there wouldn't be anybody and there wouldn't be the next generation.
So how do you rape if you know you came from a woman, which is a woman's question to a man for eons? How do you know you came from everybody living, came from a woman?
Yeah.
How do you now use that as the temperance to take power away from a woman? That to me has been if I can get the answer to that question and get it in real time, not just this philosophical ideology as to why men do it. No, I want concrete answers because they have answers. These men that do that know why they did it. They hurt people. But if you hurt a woman that way, there's something more pathological going on. And if so many of these men find the reality of truth in doing it, that's an energy. That is an infestation that's greater than any plague, any COVID, anything that's out here. Because that's ongoing and it stays unchecked because still there are women that rape.
Yes.
Still.
And I want to add something here. I have never been more ashamed of women than when I saw what was happening in Iran. You know, when I saw it, and the people who were beating women were women. And the woman who went to the United Nations who couldn't find her papers when she had to speak was a woman. At that very moment, knowing that how many kids have died and women have been raped, she should have first abdicated or given up her position and said that I don't stand with you for the violence you have doled out to another sister.
Correct.
And that was the most heartbreaking part, that the along with the oppressor is a fellow sister or a
Correct.
woman.
Correct. And you know why she does that? Because she feels as though the power is vested in the man. So she has to go along with what has happened rather than the solution. So many times we see it politically where we have a woman that'll run for office. And I've seen this. This is one of the reasons why I don't do politics. I do diplomacy. And one of the reasons that this woman did this, and I'll tell the story, brief story. She was running for office and she ran on the compass of empathy. Actually, her hashtag is apathy is lethal. You remember when we had that going? Her campaign slogan was apathy is lethal. And she ran on more empathy and empathetic people stepping up. And one of the debates that she went and she was a part of, there was 3 men and her. And one of the men said, I don't understand why my opponent is so for the women when she herself has been abused, and her mother defended the husband for an abuser. And he outed her personal story. And one of the things that she did, rather than stand up and say, yes, my mother defended my husband, but she defended my husband out of ignorance, and tell the other side of the story, which is the mother came back and apologized. She didn't tell that part. What she said was, I am going to now help you to understand why my mother did this. So we were like, oh, congratulations. Oh, great work. Oh, proud of you. But what did she do in the background? She joined his team. She felt as though him outing this thing that happened to her, this thing that happened in society, this thing she thought that was so detrimental to her that if she couldn't beat him, join him. And she came on board his political campaign and started his political campaign to the point where he won. And I looked at her and I said, how could you get aboard with a man that outed your personal story? She said, because it hurt me so bad, I felt as though that I had no power other than to support him.
She felt shame. And when they cannot win against you, they will do character assassinations. They will say that, you should hear these recordings of the woman yelling, but nobody asked the question, why is the woman yelling? And why was she with you like that and not before you? The relevant questions. Yeah.
Correct. And this woman ended up helping this man get in office, only to find out that he was just as misogynistic as the husband that she was with. So now there's a dual mortality to this. Not that you can get killed more than once, but there was a fatal wound that got infected and now became a fatality. Because not only did she support the man that she thought she couldn't beat, but now this man has now gotten into this realm of, I defeated her. So now he kind of felt empowered in his own right. And now he felt like that was condoned. The misogyny was condoned and proof that what he was saying was right. And I thought that was the worst move that she could have made. Now this man is still in office. Now he's garnering support from so many women because this woman supported him. And, and it's like, wow, when is this going to end? So more to your point, a woman that didn't realize the power of her worth, didn't realize that she could have gotten ahead of that story by telling her truth, telling the whole truth. She decided to deflate herself and go to I call it go behind the enemy lines and almost be a spy for him, and it hurts. It really, really hurts because it doesn't show that women have this voice in powerful positions. It just shows that women of power have a voice, and depending on where they go with it is where the relevance is. And that's what hurts me the most. So I think some of our campaigning this year is going to be toward women for women. And I see that going. It started in 2022, but the fever was trying to get out of COVID, that the mortality rate of women against women wasn't seen. Now with the advent of what happened with the Middle Eastern women that were tortured, we're going to use that word.
Yes,
that were tortured. Mm-hmm. And we see the women on women conflict, that it has to be brought out. It has to be something that we bring to the table when we go and sit and meet and have these discussions, because these women are not seeing the power in their voice for the sake of the power of their ridicule. And if you can,
I want to
really
ask
feel,
one last question, one
sure.
message actually to give to women on their solidarity and supporting women. One message of sisterhood that
Sure.
you would like to give women, and then I will
Right.
ask you for one message for men.
Okay. For women, you know what's right and wrong, so let's do more of what's right. Support each other. It does not hurt to support a woman. If anything, you may get a couple of your answers to your prayers by that support. And just keep being who you are: strong, powerful, great, determined, and beautiful. For men, I say, if you don't speak up for your daughter, you have essentially hurt me personally. Speaking up for your daughter is the most compassionate and positive thing that you can do. Saying my daughter is worthy of a better life than my wife, my mother, and my grandmother had says that you are stopping the violence where it sits. You have the power. You have the voice. And since this is a patriarchal society, I'm counting on you to stand up, stay up, and stay strong for women. Don't cower in the midst of your friends telling you not to do it. No, be the leader in your pack. Be the leader for your tribe, and end gender-based violence with your own.
Thank you, Amina.
You're
I
most
mean,
welcome.
that's beautiful. I think,
Thank you.
this video is going to be shared on LinkedIn, on Facebook.
Great.
It'll be here for all those who missed out on it. The
Yes.
earlier part went, so I'm just going to again say this is Dr. Amina Ali from the US. She is the founder and counsel general for the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights. I'm going to put all links of FIRE there so you can
Yes.
ignite the fire in you to make a change today. Let's not
Yes.
be talkers, let's be doers. Thank you, Amina, in your tight schedule to find time. I love
You're
you
most
for
welcome.
the work that
I
you
love
do.
you.
It's your
Thank you so much.
sincerity that touches everybody, Amina. The
Yes.
sincerity of being a diligent worker first and inspiring by example. That's who you are. That's why you're so
I love you for that. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for allowing this message to get out. I pray that someone is able to step up and
Yes.
do the work, because there's a woman waiting for you.
I think a
so
lot
much.
of people would. A lot of these organizations will
Good.
be tagged, Amina, and a lot of these introductions are going to happen. I'm not going to let this just fade out. In your 16 days
Absolutely
of
not.
activism, we will have at least 16 alliances across the globe. That much of commitment I can make. My followers are very sensitive, interactive people. I request you to please follow. I am an Amina Ali, and she's tagged and collaborator for all the posts that have happened in the last 2 days. And of course, the Federation links will be added there. Thank you, Amina. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Bye-bye. So that was Her Excellency Dr. Amina Ali from the US on the 25th of November, the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. We are in a very scary time where 3 women, if we make them stand together, 1 woman is a victim of violence. Let's not go next year to 2 women amongst 3, because that is just going to take the world into darkness. And a message to women: if we call ourselves empowered, then why are we victims? And why do we have to spend years to then become survivors of violence? Let's, as women, stand together, as Amina said, be the sisters we claim to be. And for all the amazing men who belong to the 2/3 variety that does not exploit women, thank you so much. And I would request you that for all oppression that you are a victim of, you can go to fire.org, FIGHR.org, and you can check how you can collaborate with them in your local city and country. Thank you very much. I love you all for being a part of this. It's very important that we understand that this global crisis is worse than COVID. And if we don't do something now, it will be the dark ages again. Good night. Thank you so much.